Hey family, it's Danielle, and today I have a very special guest with me. This is my daughter Jordan. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a second, but I wanted to sit down with you guys. If you are not aware, November is Adoption Awareness Month. Last year during the month of November, I sat and did chats with you guys, just talking about all things adoption, and my plan was to do that this November, but you guys, life happened. But before the month ended, I did want to sit with Jordan, and her and I have kind of a discussion about adoption. So if you guys are interested in adoption and talking about it and just learning more, then stick around for the video.
Be free.
But before we dive into this little discussion, if you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Danielle, and I am the non-traditional mommy. And on this channel, we do things like chat about all types of topics, such as adoption. So if you are interested in chats and things like that, then I would love for you to join my little family and hit the subscribe button. To the rest of my non-traditional family, you guys are the MVPs, and I love you bunches. Now, let's chat with Jordan. So, this is Jordan. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm 16 and I'm the athletic sister.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 10th grade.
Okay. And what's your favorite thing to do during COVID, stay at home, 2020?
Sleep, and I listen to music.
Okay. All right. What about pre-COVID? What was your favorite thing?
I liked volleyball and like things outdoors actively.
Being active?
Yes, being active was one of them.
Jordan is currently our PE teacher, although she's been on a leave of absence for like the last couple weeks. We don't know what's going on.
Personal issue.
A personal leave. So, just a brief disclosure before we start chatting it up. I did go to Jordan and asked her if she would feel comfortable sitting down and talking with you guys and sharing bits and pieces of her story, and us just asking questions and having an open dialogue about adoption. So she's not being forced against her will to be here. She will be 17 in February, so she is a big girl. She's old enough to make her own decision. And in fact, one of the things she's thought about doing in the future is being a social worker or DCS worker. So we do talk pretty openly about adoption. So now that we got that disclosure out, Jordan came home when she was 11.
I was 11? Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure you were 11. You got me sitting here questioning myself. October of 2015, so 2004. So yes, you were 11.
Oh, okay, yes. I really thought I was 10.
She came home when she was 11. We call it coming home. That's kind of the terminology that I prefer to use. I don't say adopted or things like that. I just say they came home because this is their home and this is their forever home, and where they're supposed to be. So she came home when she was 11. So she was older. So she was fully aware of what was going on, what was happening. I think to a certain degree, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But she knew. So this wasn't a situation where she was a baby, and then later we had to disclose to her that she was adopted, or, that she was a toddler and didn't quite understand. And then later, again, it wasn't that situation. She was an older child, so she pretty much knew what was happening. So that's why I felt comfortable with asking her to kind of be here, because she was aware. So yeah. So with that being said, let's just start this conversation. We'll kind of start light, I guess. Maybe this isn't light. Maybe this is heavy. Kind of tell us what your thought process was. Were you okay with the fact that we wanted to even change your name?
I actually have always wanted to change my name. So technically, when I had the option, I was ready to do it. And I always wanted to be named after my favorite basketball player. And then that's when I was allowed the option, I was like, oh, so I can change my name. And then I had thought about another name. So there was like multiple
Tony.
names that were coming to my head. There's a bunch of names that were coming to my head. And was like, oh, well, why not just stick with my favorite basketball player. Until this day, I regret it because there's 100,000 Jordans out there. But back then, it wasn't that many.
Yeah.
I swear it wasn't. Now, so yeah. So I always wanted to change my name. So when I got the option, I was like, yes, let's do it.
Okay. So it wasn't a situation where she was in love, because if she was like, I don't want to change my name and I'm in love with my name and this is my name, we wouldn't have changed her name. So we did give her the option to change it, and she said she wanted to change it. And we had a few names on the table, but we settled on Jordan for several reasons. She at the time, she was basketball obsessed, and so we thought, okay, Jordan. And then Jordan is, the river flows. And so her personality still is very flowy, and she is easy, like navigates easily, not very strenuous and trying to navigate or change. So like a river, she just kind of flows easily through life. And then we had a Jaden, and they are 1 year and 7 days apart. And so it was kind of like Jaden and Jordan. It was kind of our thought process between that. So that's how we settled on Jordan. So for those of you who are thinking, okay, older child is going to be so hard to, I don't know, them change their name or to take on an identity in our family, I think it probably depends on.
Yes, certainly.
So do you remember the first time that we met?
Yes.
Do you remember your thoughts?
So my thoughts were like, oh yeah, I was telling everybody all day, I'm leaving early, yeah, And then I was like, but wait, where am I going? And then when I was in the car, they were kind of telling me and explaining to me, and I was like, oh, you took me out of school for this? I was like, I could have stayed there. And they were like, well, because, we're going to a playground. I was like, oh, playground? Okay, then never mind. So then, because like I said, I like being active, so I've always been an active person. So when I was told I was going to a playground, I was like, oh, so they just here to take me to a park? And then I was like, oh, they're actually talking to us. I thought they were just taking us to a park. And then I was like, okay, well. And then I was like, okay, I actually think that I caught a connection with Daddy before I caught a connection with you.
It's still that way, y'all.
I caught a connection with Daddy. And I think that's because his personality, and he's an extrovert. And Mommy, you have a rested face, so it's still kind of scary. And I was like, oh, yeah, she's very intimidating. But at the same time, I always had a problem with the females in my life. So I always gravitated towards the males. So,
yeah. Yes. So remember being excited for leaving school early.
Yes.
But then realizing it was going to meet your potential family, and being like, really, this I should have stayed at school. But then it's a playground, so as a kid, it's like, oh well, okay, I'll take it. Yeah. I remember thinking, I don't know, is she going to be able to connect to me? Are we going to have kind of like, in the movies, that instantaneous bond where it's like, oh, you're my new mom and this is my daughter, and we just hug, or in the movies where it's that child that's like, you're not my mother, and like, push you and run off the playground. So I wasn't sure which one. And I tend to be a little overbearing at times. So I remember we got you guys the Superman t-shirts.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I remember the park. I was...
Yeah, and so we have a picture. I'll try to insert it for you guys. But we like took a picture and I'm like, forcing them like taking selfies and stuff like that. And she's like, kind of sort of smiling, but not really. You remember?
I mean, there's two reasons why I did smile. I was kind of uncomfortable, but also I never liked smiling. So I always was like,
yeah.
And my teeth were always embarrassing. So I never smiled.
Yeah.
So
that was a big thing. Us trying to get her to smile as time went on.
There was a breaking point. You caught me off guard. I remember I had an Oh Hey shirt on and you were like doing a smile and I was like not knowing what's happening and I was like, wait a second.
Are you smiling at that picture?
I was like
I can't
pose. Like,
yeah.
Like, oh my god, she came out. I'm like, wait. All right.
Met us for the first time. We all go home. We all go our separate ways. And you're thinking...
Well, like when you left the first time?
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of mixed emotions until you guys came back again. So there was a time I was like, oh yeah, I want them to come back. And then when I realized that it was like, as it got closer to you guys come back, I was like, I don't want them to come back. I don't want them to go. And then you guys came back again. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're here. And they have a whole big van. And I was like, and then I saw the kids come. And I was like,
But you kind of knew already, right?
Like,
because of the photo album that we sent.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, the kids, I was like, there's a lot of them. But then I was like, I'm kind of used to it. I had a whole bunch of people, a lot of kids my age around me. And then I saw them and they were kind of intimidating too, for some reason. I think because they were all together and they were like a bigger, and I had this mentality like, because like they were a big fan, those guys are big and they were like siblings, so that means that they were really connected. And I know myself and I know that I'm a person who could sometimes be like a problem starter. So I felt like maybe I would have a problem with one of them and then they all would come.
Yeah.
And like, because they were so strong and like protect one. And I'm like, wow, I'm only one person.
So would you say that you came into it kind of like with your guard up, kind of ready to fight?
Yes.
Like, I'm ready for them to start something.
Yes, that's kind of how I always was. So, but then eventually when we like stayed together, I was like, oh, I grew a connection with Jay and Sydney. Me and Bradley didn't get along at all until like I actually came home. But me and Jay and Sydney, we got together. I think it's me and Sydney was first, and then Jaden, because Jay and she kind of still was.
You and Sydney fought so much.
Well, yeah, but when we were at the hotel, me and Sydney got along pretty well. Me and Sydney, like, she would talk to me about how she had all these Barbies and things like that. And she asked me if I played Barbie games and stuff like that, and I told her about that. And then Jay had a Nintendo, and she had an electronic, so I was like, oh, she has an electronic. So me, Jay, and Sydney, we hit it off kind of in a good way and a weird way. So, yes.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the little kids, I like little kids, so I was always playing with them. I remember that, too. So, yes.
Yeah. So we did 2 visits there. And then they had a visit where they were coming. They came to visit us where we lived, and ended up staying, which is just insane. That's usually not how it goes, you guys. So typically with adoption, you'll have visits. So you'll do, where you go visit them at wherever they live. If you're local, it might be with the foster family. So that's usually how it goes. There's like these tiny bits. And with a cross-state adoption, the way it was supposed to go is we went for 2 visits. So me and my husband went by ourselves, and then we came back with all of our kids, and then they were coming to visit us for the weekend, and then they would have went back home and then came for another visit, and then we would have had the final, like, okay, this is you're going to stay. But due to some reasons that we won't talk about or disclose here, they came and then stayed. And so how was that? I mean, I know that that's a hard question to kind of answer without us getting into too many details, but
Yeah.
how was it for you?
Well, it was a shocker because I was expecting to go back.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, it was nice being here for the next 3 days. And I remember they had actually told me how long I was supposed to stay, and they had me pack a bag. They said I was supposed to be there, I think, for like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So 3 days, 2 or 3 days, and I was like, okay. And I remember the last day I was packing my stuff, and then I was like, oh yeah, and I was sitting there, and I was like,
So you
all right,
were
I'm
ready to
going.
leave.
Yes, I was ready to go back. I was like, okay, well, this was nice, nice little place. I remember I walked around actually, and I was like, yeah, it's a nice little place one last time. And I was expecting like to hear a ring on the door, a doorbell or something, and I didn't. And I was like, okay, well then. So I did unpack my stuff actually, and I was like, so I could put my stuff back. And then Jane was like, oh yeah, you're staying forever. And I was like, okay, you funny. And I remember because she was joking, but I didn't think she actually knew. So she was joking, and I was like, okay, you're funny. So then we actually went out in the backyard, and then I remember you came and you had told me about the stuff, and I was like, oh, I think that affected me, and I think that might have also affected me because I was expecting to go back, and I didn't get to go back and say goodbye or anything.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of affected me in a way, and I felt like I was blaming you, and I was blaming the DCS worker, and I was blaming the foster parent. I was blaming everyone, and I was like, see, this is everyone's fault, and all that,
And that's true. And that's true, you guys, because what a lot of people don't understand about adoption is that you have this person, this child who doesn't get to have a say in their life. Like they don't get to say, no, I don't, I mean, they can. I mean, absolutely they could be like, no, I don't like this, or no, I don't want to go, and things like that. Absolutely, yes. But what I'm saying, don't get to have a say. Like when things are moving quickly, or us adults in the background are making decisions, even if we know it's for the safety of the child or the best interest of them, the child doesn't know, and they don't get to say, I don't like this, and then get their way, because we're making decisions that may be in the best interest but not in the best interest. So that's one of the things about adoption, is that it's such this delicate place. You have a child that that DCS is trying to protect, that the adoptive family is trying to protect, and in most cases that the foster family is trying to protect. But at the same time, this child is losing something, and they don't get to say, I don't want to do it this way. It's basically. So I think you were valid in those emotions and blaming us, because we did make. That's true. It was all of us that made the decision that you guys were going to stay that weekend. We could have said, as the adoptive family, they asked us, we could have absolutely said no. They need to go home. They need to go home. But we just felt like it was the best. We made the best decision that we could at the time with what we knew. Looking back now, I think that me and Daddy would say, no, they need to go home. And we would figure out whatever came after that. We would probably make the decision, no, they need to go home, so that Jordan could say her goodbyes and have that closure. The closure is so important in adoption. So I think we would say, no, they need to go home, and then we'll deal with whatever backlash when it comes up. You hadn't met DJ yet, right?
Oh no, I hadn't met DJ. I met Uncle.
Do you remember meeting? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I was upstairs, and I think he came to babysit us.
Yeah.
I was in the bathroom, and I came upstairs, and I was looking for you guys to ask y'all a question. And he was on the couch. He was like, "Hey," I was like, I never actually met a gay person, so I was like, "Oh, what is?" I was like, "Hi." And he was like, "Hey, come here." I was like, so I go downstairs, and he gave me a hug, and I was like, "Wow." He's super skinny, so my arms went around him, and I was like, oh. So I gave him a hug, And he was like, "How old are you?" And I was like 11. And he was asking me a whole bunch of questions, and I was like, "Oh wow, he's funny." And then we played the game. So yes, I
Yeah.
remember my introduction to DJ. But I met Uncle before DJ.
Yeah, because Uncle was there that weekend that you came to visit, so he was there.
And he wasn't there the first 3 days, but I think he came like on a Saturday because college, right?
Yeah, he came because he was there for Halloween.
Oh yes, he came for Halloween.
Yeah.
I connected to Uncle too. So
Yeah.
yeah, Uncle and Daddy. I called Uncle before I called Daddy, and
Yeah.
So I remember.
Do you think, kind of getting to the harder questions, do you think that it was harder for you to connect to me because of your biological mom?
I definitely think that plays a factor. You were so much different from her, so it was a lot harder because you were actually, motherly. So you were more like motherly, so it was harder. And I remember I used to ask Jade and them all the time, like, would it be okay for me to call her mommy? I would get permission from them. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, jump into it. And I'm like, yeah, I want to, but I don't know how she would react. So it wasn't necessarily how much I felt about calling you mommy. It was more so how you would react because I don't.
Right.
So,
I don't know her like that.
Yes, I was like, so I don't know. Like if I just, cause I call people certain things faster. So I actually asked Uncle if he was comfortable with me calling that. He was like, yeah, you can call me that. So then I asked Daddy, I was like, could I call you like father or something? He was like, yeah, you can call me that. So I was trying to warm up to that. So when it came to you, I was like, I don't know how you will react to it.
Yeah.
So that's why it took so long for me. But I think it was a lot harder for me to connect with you, or a lot harder to call you mommy because I didn't think how you would react. And then I was also thinking, well, if I call you mommy, what would I have to call her? Because she's also my mom too. So
yeah, it's almost. Would you say it's like a feeling of, are you replacing? I already have a mom.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, it wasn't like you were replacing her. It was kind of like if I was replacing her with you.
Yeah.
So that wasn't you replacing her.
Right.
I was replacing.
If I start calling her mommy, then does that mean I am being disloyal to my mom?
Yes, and I always thought she would find out in a way.
Yeah.
I was always like, will she find this out? So.
And then you were worried that if she found out?
If she found out, then that means I wasn't her child too. So
yeah.
I didn't know how to adjust to having two.
Right.
So yeah, and I always thought I was going back still at the time. So I was always like, so if I go back, I would have to call her that and then have to adjust to calling both of them.
So when you thought you were going back, when you say you thought you were going back, explain what that means.
So I thought, at first I knew it was a visit, but I thought that if I had officially got adopted by you, I didn't know how it worked, so I thought that I would be going both ways. So like going to see her too, stay there for a week, come here for a week, kind of like that. So I thought it was like, how if you have like
an open adoption.
Yeah. Or
it's kind of like
Mm-hmm. So like that's an open adoption where you guys can see each other and all that. So that's how I thought it was. The reason why I thought it was like that, going to be like that, is because it was kind of like that with my foster family and them.
Yeah.
So there was times where like we had visits, and they'd be like, you can go see them over there, because we lived down the street.
Right.
So it was like you can go see them, and then they can come see you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it was, and I thought it would be like that.
Yeah. And so how do I marry the two if it's like that? So our adoption is not open with Jordan. It's not a closed adoption either. So the difference between open and closed, open adoption is when the biological family can still see the adopted child. So there may be planned visits. You don't ever drop your adopted child off to the biological family, but they can see the child. So you might go to a museum and all hang out together and see them. They can request pictures of the child, and you have to send them pictures. And then maybe as the child gets older and there's a level of comfort, you could let the child go stay for a weekend. You look at an open adoption kind of like shared custody, only they don't have custody or any rights to the child. So that's what an open adoption is. A closed adoption is when the biological family has zero contact with the child and they can't get any information on where that child is, who that child is with, anything like that. They don't know anything. The child cannot seek information about the family, so the records are usually sealed, that kind of thing. That's a closed adoption. Because Jordan was older, we don't have either. So it's not an open adoption where we just are like, where we had contact with her family, and it's not closed where she doesn't know anything about her biological family. It's neither of those. We kind of fall in the middle, meaning that we're her parents, and so we can decide how it goes. So that's kind of where we sit with her adoption. Having it in the middle sometimes makes it harder because you're trying to figure out which direction you want to go as the parent. Do you allow there to be some openness, or do you completely close this thing off? How do you navigate and figure that out? So keep that in mind if you're considering adoption. It can be open or closed. And I think for an older child, it might depend on the state you're in, the social worker, and the child's circumstances. So there might be some situations where they're like, this is a closed adoption, or they might be like, it's open. The choice was left up to us, but it was suggested that we err on the closed side. But it was kind of like, we're gonna let you guys do. You guys make whatever best decision you think you want to make, but here's our recommendation. That's how that works. Any questions about that?
You actually answered. I was actually thinking, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you about the difference between an open and closed one, because I actually was looking it up the other day, because I was trying to learn more about the DCS world. My question was going to be, like, first the question was, what's the difference between, like, where you can keep the person and they can still see? I didn't know the words that you were saying. So that's what the question was going to be. And I was going to ask which one, we were in a part of, and now I know that we're in the middle.
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
It's partially because Jordan is older. So I think if she was younger, they would have said, this needs to be a closed adoption, and there wouldn't have been any question. But because she already had contact with her family, it was kind of like this gray kind of murky waters.
It's kind of like I already knew
Right.
most of the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You remember when it was official, when we were like, it's official, you've been adopted?
Yes. It was like the month and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, do you?
October 26th.
I remember we were in Gallenberg. We did not go down to the state because, y'all, the drive is so far. And we thought about flying. We asked our social worker, do you think we should come? What do you think we should do? What do you think is the best practice? And she was like, no, it's going to be quick and fast, and we'll have you guys on the phone, and they'll ask you some questions. The judge will ask you some questions on the phone, and it'll just, it'll be quick, it'll be fast. So there's really no need for you guys to make that trip all the way down here.
I said, Doctor, we officially got you.
That's when it officially happened. But then, of course, you have to wait for the paperwork. So, of course, we changed her name, and we changed her full name. So, first, middle, and last. So then we had to get a new birth certificate, Social Security, all that stuff. So we had to wait for all that paperwork. So, okay, so you remember being told, were you like...
I don't remember.
You don't remember your emotions?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
So when did you say you started feeling like, okay, this is my family? If you even feel that way yet, or are you still? Tell us like where you are with that in that process.
I know the first 2 years I refused. So I think it maybe was around 13, 14.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think. Yeah, it's about 13 or 14. No, 15. And I say 15 because
It keeps getting later and later, y'all.
I say no. I mean, at first 13 and 14, I was like kind of on a hinge, and then
Yeah.
14 it got stronger, and then 15 I was like, okay, I gotta just suck it up because I think it was after our March situation.
Yeah.
Like my birthday, and then the whole March situation. So after that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is for real. This is serious. And then I had cut.
It's like I'm not going nowhere.
Yes.
I'm unfortunately stuck with these people.
And I think it wasn't just more so me putting myself. I think it was also because of the fact of like Jaden and everybody else, like the kids, they actually wanted me to stay too. So I felt welcomed by the kids. So I wasn't like the first few years. I was kind of like they don't really want me here. They just putting on the act and all that.
Yeah. So for a long time, you still felt like
I was ruining something.
Yeah, that we didn't necessarily. And so I feel like for you guys that's thinking about adopting, where a lot of us get it wrong is that this older child is going to come in and it's just going to be, society makes it one or the other. They make it's going to be just glorious and beautiful and everybody's going to sail off into the sunset. Or it's going to be horrifying and the child is going to shoot you and your husband in your sleep. Like it's one of the two. It's how society makes it. They don't talk about this middle ground of how it can be beautiful, but then also like hard. Like there's these two things married together. And so for a long time, I think, Jordan, if you tell me if I'm wrong, for a long time, you kind of toddle between they don't really want me, or I don't really want to be here, or this is not my family, or how long is this going to last kind of feelings.
It was like tug of war for sure. It was a loyalty thing.
Yeah.
So
when you say loyalty,
I was trying to, like, I had this, like, I felt that I had this strong bond with my biological family and everyone back in Delaware, versus having like a new bond that I had to try to create with newer folks that are in my life. So it was kind of like, all right, you want to be over here because they're taking care of you now and they're loving you and doing all that, but then you feel, oh no, because they love me too, and maybe one day come back and we all reunite or something. So it's kind of like
I'm being disloyal.
Yeah, so I like didn't want to be disloyal and then have to be loyal to. I didn't realize I could be loyal to multiple different things. So
I felt like I had to choose between the two. Yeah.
That was ours.
Yeah, and I think for for you as a mother or a parent, that becomes hard to even understand to even put yourself to understand for a child, because you're thinking, she's older, right? So she knows. So you're thinking, why would you even want to be loyal to these people? Like, no, stop it, cut it off. No, you need to be over here with us. You have that feeling like you just want them to just figure it out, get over it, and move on, versus you trying to understand that she was with them still today longer than she has been with us. So there is that kind of feeling of loyalty and love and unconditional, because kids just love unconditionally, y'all. And so that unconditional love towards them, that makes me have to kind of take the back seat to that kind of loyalty. So that's hard. That is, I'm just gonna put it out there. That is hard. So
I think even if you like think 10 or up, if you adopt them 10 or up, if you know or think that they know everything about their family, sometimes you still don't know. They still don't know about their family. So as you go on, you still like things start to click a little, and it's kind of like I thought I was going back, but I also was trying to figure out like why am I going farther away from them? Like I was already here, that's already far, and then I'm going further away. It's like, why do we feel like you're being pushed away? So although I was loyal, I still felt like I was being pushed away some type of way, which is why I kept trying to work my way back, because I wanted to be close. So I still felt pushed away and kept feeling like I was being pushed away. So I think that's also what made it hard. I was like, wow, you guys are the reason why I'm being pushed away from my family. So
yeah, we were the enemies.
Yes.
We were the ones that was keeping her away from them.
And
you know everything. What do you mean?
Right.
You're like
11-year-olds, like me, for myself, I felt as though I knew everything. And like, I felt like, oh yeah, I know all this about them already, and there's nothing else that's different or anything's going to change. And then that was like before I even know anything about me being adopted. And that was like earlier in 2015. I was like, there's nothing going to change, so why is everyone trying to like, she's fine, they're fine, we're going to go back together and things like that. Because I think we had a visit for a year with my biological mom. So
yeah.
we could visit her for a whole year, and they give her a year or so to fix. So I was like, she's fine, she's gonna be good. I don't know why everyone's trying to push me away. And then when I got photo albums, I was like, oh yeah, they're cool kids or whatever. And then when I actually realized I was meeting y'all, that same day I was actually told that the visit was done and there's no more. And I was like, okay. So it was all that. And then the day before, I think that was the time where I tried to run away.
Yeah.
And I tried to run away, and that was a whole fiesta. So yeah, but when I say that you don't know everything, or you think that the 11-year-old knows everything, the 11-year-old is still figuring out stuff just as much as you are.
Right.
So I think as much as you know about their biological family, they eventually will find out about their biological family too.
If you just let it be.
Yes, if you let it be.
Like let them. So do you feel like we should have, instead of, because we just basically was like, psh, cut the ties.
I think that
we should just have let you still explore and
find out the hard way.
Talk to them and things like that and stuff like that.
I don't think talk to them, but maybe like stalk.
Yeah.
Like social medias and things like that. So I think they did that, and then I find out.
Yeah.
By myself, and then I could come and have the conversation and things like that. Maybe that part, but not the whole talking and actually having contact with them. I don't think I would have been able, or would have been able to handle it, or I don't think I handled it well.
Yeah.
Already, so I think just kind of looking and seeing what's up with them, things like that.
Yeah. Which I had access to their social media. So for her, my thought was, I know one day, I had two thoughts, you guys, with having that access. Because I wanted photos. And so I thought, well, maybe I could get photos of her when she was younger. So that was one reason. And B, I wanted, in the future, if she ever came and was like, where's my family, my biological family, I wanted to be able to say, here they go, here's your contact. So I wanted to keep contact with them for that reason. I didn't myself quite know, I guess what you were saying, what we were getting into. I didn't know what kind of situation we were dealing with. So I can't say if that is a good idea or if that is a bad idea. for
I
you.
think depending
But
on the kid, it could be a good idea or a bad idea.
yeah. Well, I think it depends not only the child, but I think also the biological family.
Oh yeah, and
I think that's what really matters is what kind of what kind of biological family you're dealing with, what's their situation. All those things really matter. So 15, you started feeling like, okay, I guess I'm a Cole now.
Yes, I realized I was trapped in something I couldn't get out of.
Yeah.
It was hardcore love, guys. I'm telling you, it was literally the love was so strong. Sometimes you just can't. You think you could push through and go back, but you just can't. It's like the rubber where you put your hand through and it just don't pop.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was. So, and you just eventually give up.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't want it. I love feeling loved, and I love being cared about.
Also, the loyalty I
And the
think
loyalty.
is huge because you got two people. Again, she spent what 10 years? It was 9 or 10,
8.
so 8 years with them, and then there was that 3-year period of foster care.
Mhm.
And so we've just beat foster care. We're 5 years now, so now we're older than foster care.
Yes.
But we still got 3 years before we catch up with biofamily. So, I mean, it's those kind of things that you have to tell yourself and remind yourself when you're in the heart of it and you're like, what the is going on? But you got to remind yourself, like, okay, that's why this is. So,
When adopting, and you guys, like, my question is, what type of bond, like, I don't know how to explain it, like, bond did you feel, or like connection did you feel? Like when we met when we first met.
yeah.
Cause I know you mentioned a lot, but you say like you felt a connection or
Right.
something between us to how we could like relate. I just like what's the
Yeah, just that. So, okay, one of the things talking about bonding with your adoptive child, because I think a lot of people, that's a good question. I think a lot of people, one of the concerns they have with adopting is, am I going to bond to this child? That's kind of a big thing. We know what bond mean, right?
Yeah.
You get that whole concept. So, a lot of people worry about that. For me, with adoption, it's almost like I tell them that they were born in my heart, which is a real thing. Because for me, it's like carrying this child in your spirit for however long before you get to meet them. So you guys' story and your adoption was so different from the standpoint that we were matched to you guys in July. So I found out about y'all in July. And so I had all the way from July to October to like carry y'all. Like I had pictures and I'm like telling people, so it's like a pregnancy kind of thing.
yes.
Does
So
it-
that's what you mean when you say 9 months in my heart.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a pregnancy because I know like these are my kids, but they're just somewhere else right now. But these are my kids, like they're not here, but I'm like carrying them. So, there's that kind of bond when you are matched with a child, but so our adoption story with Jordan was we were matched, but we still had to go through a process. So they still had other families where they had to like wean out which family was going to be the best family for these kids. So they contacted us and was like, well, you're a match, but you still got to go through all this other process. Mm-hmm. It is harder to adopt than to give birth. It should be the opposite, right? But whatever. People could just pop out kids and be horrible, horrible people. But to adopt, it takes a whole lot more. So anyway, so because of that, we went through such a long process that I had already like been kind of carrying and preparing, and the same when you're pregnant, y'all, telling myself stories of how I think it's gonna be. Like, I'm like the same way. So you've seen me pregnant twice with Trice and 11. So the same kind of way of like, oh, when they get home, it's gonna be like this, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna be like, oh, like
Yes.
just telling myself these stories and preparing and prepping and that kind of thing. So when I finally met y'all, I had already been doing all of that, and it was like a birth. Like, here they are. Like, these are my kids, and I get to see them in the flesh. And, you know, I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna do with Jordan. I've always told Jordan, you and I have a unique connection because our backgrounds are similar. So Jade, my biological girls, they can't relate to a lot of stuff because I'm their biological mother. They've always been here. This is all they know is the suburbs. Whereas me and you kind of share similar backgrounds. So we have that unique bond in a way that we have similar backgrounds. So for me, it binds, for me, it binds me to you differently because I feel like, I don't know, but I feel like I know what you went through as a child because I went through similar, and I just want to, I'm going to use the worst word you can use in adoption, y'all, but I just want to like rescue you. Like, I want to like protect you from that because I was in that too.
Okay.
So.
Well, that answers the question. Also, back to when you were asking how I felt about the adoption thing.
Yeah.
I remember when we had actually played outside the next day. And remember when we all were over by one house and we were playing with the ball and all that? Me, Jane, Cindy, and there was a whole bunch of other kids down there.
At the old house? In the common area?
I remember there was the 2 kids. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, you must be adopted. I never seen you before." And I remember, I never liked the feeling of or the word adoption. And I'd be like, "No, I wasn't adopted. I just stayed with our grandma for years." And they'd be like, "Yeah, I saw you come with white people." Like they literally would say stuff like that, and I'd be like, "Yeah, my grandparents." And they'd be like, "Your grandparents?" Or what? Like they'll just keep going and keep saying you're adopted and all that.
So basically, having people say, "Oh, you're adopted." So would you say for a family to use that word within the family context?
Okay, so...
Or is it just outside people? Or just in general?
I think the difference between a family member saying it and a person outside the family, if a person outside the family say I'm adopted, I'm like, no, I'm a part of the family. If a person outside the family, they'll put me down and be like, okay, so I'm not a part of the family. So it's kind of like the opposite for me.
Yeah.
So
somebody on the outside be like, oh, so she was adopted. You're like, no, I'm part of this family.
Exactly.
You just feel like they don't get it. But if somebody inside the family say it, you're like, oh, now all of a sudden I'm adopted. So I'm not part of the family.
Yes, because they know the situation.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So using that word can be a trigger word.
And it can be a trigger word, yes. And I think it kind of helps me grow a stronger bond to my family when a person outside the family uses it versus a person inside the family using it. And I think that because if someone tells me adopted, my mind will just go and be like, you know you're adopted, but they loved you, so you can. So I'll be like, no, I'm a part of the family. Thank you, and then just keep going.
I would agree with about the word adoption or adopting or she's adopted. Obviously, if you black family adopting a white child or a white family adopting a black child, it's gonna be a little harder for people not to be like, wait a minute, this child's got to be adopted because what's going on here? So it's gonna be a little harder not to use the word, but I think when you just use it so frequently, it does divide, especially when you have other kids. So I think if all your kids are adopted, it may feel different because y'all are adopted. All the kids are adopted. So we just talk about it because we all were adopted. So we're all on like equal playing field, so to speak. But I think if you are adopting a child into a family that has kids, the word adoption almost separates them. It's like we're not the same. It kind of causes division and things like that. So I think that the word, that's why the word should not be used or whatever. I always tell, my adopted kids, I don't know if I've ever told Jordan, but I've always told like Bradley, and I think I've said it to Harris a couple times, when the other kids, because kids are cruel, y'all, your own kids, other people's kids, when they like to be like, oh, well, you were adopted, teasing, that they can say, well, that makes me more special because mommy chose me. She didn't choose you. You were just kind of like given to her. She actually made a choice for me, which is true. That almost makes it, again, it causes division for either the biological child or the adopted child. So that's why I think that word, and we try so hard not to use it when we're talking to people about our kids. I always say I have 12 kids. I never be like, well, I have this many biological and this many. Unless somebody literally asks me the question like, did you give birth to all 12 of them? I don't ever distinctly say, well, I have this many or this many. So, if somebody said, well, did you give birth to 12? I'll say I gave birth to 8. And then I leave it at that. I still never say, well, no, they were adopted and then I always try not to point out like, well, this one, and this one, unless again it's being asked directly, because I'm not gonna lie about it, obviously. So yeah, so talking about that, one of the questions people always want to know is birth order. And you coming into a family where now you have an older sister and an older brother. So you're no longer the oldest child. How was that for you, coming in and having an older sister who not only is your older sister, but she only older by a year?
I felt that my duty to protect went down a little bit because I felt, why do I need to protect all of them when I had 2 older siblings? We all can do it together, all 3 of us. Think of it as kind of like the trio, like the deadly trio, because like I just like the feeling of having it's just us 3 being the oldest, kind of. I don't know how to explain.
Yeah,
it really.
It wasn't hard for you having her try to tell you what to do.
No, I think I needed it. I don't like being told what to do, but I think Jay at least caring enough, even though I've expressed to her I don't like being told what to do. I think her caring enough and not caring about the fact that I don't like being told what to do, and her still telling me what to do has definitely helped me, and it makes our relationship stronger.
What about Sydney, who I think struggles? She may not struggle as much anymore, but definitely struggled with having another older sister that wasn't already an older sister. Like it's almost like Sydney wanted you to be her baby sister.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, so once again, when it comes to being told to do, she did always try to tell me what to do, and I'd be like, "You're not older than me." So we always bumped heads because she would try to tell me what to do, and I'd always be like, "You don't tell me what to do."
Yeah.
And
Jordan would be like, "You're not older than me," and Sydney would be like, "But I've been here longer."
Yes, and I'd be like, "Okay, but you're not older than me." She would just do that, and I would be like, "What don't you get? You're not older than me. I've been on Earth longer." So we would go back and forth because she tried to tell me what to do. And I think that was kind of a real issue that Sydney had, because Sydney would try to tell me what to do, and I'd be like, no, I do my own thing. Sometimes she would tell me what to do would be the right thing, but because I don't like the fact that she's younger than me and trying to tell me what to do, I kind of would avoid it.
Yeah. I think that that step out of birth order definitely affected them a lot more than anybody else. Because that was probably the only, I mean, Bradley's a boy, so it's different when it comes to that. But I think Sydney probably struggled the hardest having a sister that's now older, but closer to her older sister's age. But then Sydney's like, well, I've been here longer, so I'm older than you. Like,
Yes.
that terminology, like, yeah, you're older by birth, but not by, like, adoption. You're not older. You're technically only, because I would say to them, I would say, y'all, Jordan is like 2.
I'm 5 now. Actually.
Right. And I would,
the same age.
yes, I would say that in a way, not being condescending, but in a way of trying to get them to understand she's only been home for 2 years, so she's still trying to figure this thing out and navigate like what this is like. So it's like having a 2-year-old. Like, they are only been in our world for 2 years. So she's only been in our world for 2 years. So I would say that, and I think Sydney took that literal, like,
Yes.
you're 5, I'm 14. You need to sit down. Yeah.
Remember what mommy said? You're 2. Like, go. Come on.
Yeah. So, kind of wrapping this up, what is some advice you would give to a older child that is either getting ready to be adopted or in foster care or has already been adopted?
I say, honestly, think about the situation you were in before, and then think about the situation you're going into. Like, if you know how bad or how good your situation was, but it just couldn't work out in the past, so you kind of have to go. I think that you have to realize that you could make a better future with yourself, and your parents could help you. Like, you have parents who are there to help you, and they're by your side and will push you up there. And if you do want to go back in the future when you turn 18, it's really your decision. I mean, you're 18, so you're legally an adult. So I think that's something you should think about. Like, live in the moment, not the past. Like, live in the moment and think about the future. And the past is just kind of there. So,
Yeah.
I think that's some advice.
And what about a family that's considering adopting an older child or has adopted an older child and may be struggling?
Communicate. I mean, yeah, you could pamper and cuddle and snuggle, but I think communicate also. Like, ask some questions. Like, kind of get to know each other right there. Kind of like ask questions about how they're doing, how they're feeling, and what they think about the adoption process and how they think it could go, or like communicate. Give it some time and some space. It's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while for someone 11 or up, whatever the age is that you adopted, to adjust. They'll eventually get into it, hopefully. Like, this, it's hard to give advice to old adults. Like, really.
Why?
I mean,
that y'all, it's perfect to give advice to an adult because we're dealing with you. So right. So who better to give advice on how to deal with that person than that person?
So yes, give it some time and like allow the child to adjust and kind of like sort of depending on child. Some child, they have a problem with like they don't know you, so you're trying to enforce rules. And I think give rules slowly and like let them know that it's still your house or still your rule. They still gotta follow it. Let them adjust to that rule, and then slowly add the rules for the kids who don't like being told what to do by people they don't really know. And then for the guy,
I mean, that's cute because they don't know you, y'all. Like, this is what I think is so hard for us families who are adopting to grasp. Like, we feel like we know you because we get this stack of paperwork and we read your story and we carry it around and it's like, this is our baby.
and then y'all send us a photo book, and we're
But
like, wow.
right, but I mean, you don't know us,
Yes.
so yeah, that's
So I say that, and then for the ones who are like me, which is like kind of like that struggle with loyalty. I say I struggle with the loyalty. So with the loyalty thing, I say kind of like let them. I mean, really like see. I can't tell those what they like this. I recommend or suggest that you let them know what you want them to know, and then if they handle that much, then you can keep giving little portions. So little like portions of some things that you think they will handle, and if they handle it well, then keep on giving.
yeah,
Slowly.
little nuggets.
Yes, and then you can give them some of you. So give them a little bit of your background and how, and then they'll just pick from there. And if they do decide to pass, you keep doing your way, and then when they turn 18, you know that they're probably not going to be there.
Yeah, you
And
just
if
have
they
to be
don't
okay.
go your way and they turn 18 and they do what they were doing when they were with you, and then you're like, okay, well, you can give them the information if they still want it, but if not, still just kind of keep it just in case that time comes. So yeah, that's some information too.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. I think that you got to be patient. You can't go into this thing with preconceived thoughts and expectations. You know, you can't go into it thinking it's going to be a certain way, because I can tell y'all 100%, it don't matter which way you think it's going to be, it ain't going to be that way. Even if you think it's going to be easy, or if you think it's going to be hard, or somewhere, it's not. It's going to be totally different than what you've prepared yourself for, because you're dealing with a whole person that has been on this earth for a good amount of time, and has developed their own personality and their own characteristics and things like that. So definitely patience and time and communication would probably be super key. And I would say communicate even when you're like done, because there would be times I could communicate with Jordan and I'm like, she don't care, she ain't listening, she don't care, so you know what, I'm done, I ain't communicating no more. But I would say you gotta keep pushing through and keep, right,
Yes,
you would say keep
fighting.
doing, yeah, keep pushing. So anything else before we end this thing?
I I also like being told when I look like one of my parents. Cause then literally, someone I remember remember the lady who helped Sydney with her foot injury. She was like, "You got your mom's eyes." I was
Yeah.
like, "Really?" And I went around the house for I think for a week. I was telling everybody, I was like, "Oh my gosh, so what's that? I had mom's eyes," and they're like, "Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay." Like
Finding that bit of connection some kind of way, because I think one of the biggest things too that you probably still struggle with is pictures,
yes,
photos. And so being able to connect in some kind of way.
I like the fact that we all can at least fit in and like kind of look.
Yes.
So I think when they realize that they kind of like look like you, or if you have like an interracial couple or interracial kids, I mean like for the black family and they have a white kid, I think if they find like some type of
connection.
Yeah, like the connection also. Connection is also something that I think.
So if they're like, oh, we have the same nose, even though we're different colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So kind of like.
So yeah, just those connections. And I would say I agree. I like when all of us we all come together and you look at our family photos and you cannot decipher who's who. That I think is the best thing. And so a lot of times when we go to work together, people will say, is that your daughter? You remember that lady? She was like, is that your daughter? I was like, yeah. She was like, I could tell. You look just like your mom. I always wonder, I'm glad you said that, because when people say stuff like that, I always wonder what is going on in your head. Like, are you like, that ain't my mama? Or if you're like,
if you see me, my mom,
yeah.
do that
people,
stuff in my head. It's funny.
Yeah, people will say it like when we're at work together and stuff like that. They'll be like, "Oh, is that your daughter?" Yeah. And so I like that because it just makes it feel like there is no division in this family. So, but before we end, I was going to say pictures, you guys. If you are lucky enough to have a foster family or a DCS worker, social worker, like, I would strongly encourage you when you're adopting an older child to ask the social worker if they can just get pictures any kind of way. You know, a lot of times they can't because of the circumstances and situations, but just ask them, you know, is it possible? Is there any way? Because that is such a huge thing, is not having just that background of pictures. You haven't seen any?
Never seen pictures. Only the one that's up on the wall.
Yeah. So that's it, you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us today for this adoption topic. Thank you, Jordan, for sharing.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Sharing parts of your story with us. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you have any questions for Jordan, more questions, or would like to see us sit and talk some more, feel free to leave those in the comments below. And if you're still here, because y'all, this video is long. So if you stuck around this long, then we need to make it official, and you just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join my little family. To the rest of my non-traditional family, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Hold on, wait, don't go. Stay. If you would like to see more videos about me discussing adoption or any videos of Jordan, she has a 5-10 favorite things video. I will leave those videos here and here for you guys to go check out. So let's go watch them. Jordan will meet you over on her video, and I'll meet you. I'll meet you there, you guys.